What's up, everybody? Time for some more rSpace. My, male 27, wife, female 26, lost her job after leaving early numerous times out of concern for her friend's, female 26, mental health after her miscarriage. But when I tried to talk to her, she made me out to be the enemy. My wife and I have been married for 3 years, and we don't have any kids at the moment. We want to have kids in the near future, but as of right now, my wife is really struggling, and I don't know what to do to help her. My wife, Liz, has a best friend, Lauren, who she's known since high school. But ever since 2 years ago, Lauren has been going through a lot. Lauren had a miscarriage a couple of years back, and Liz told me that it was one of the things that led to her eventual divorce with her husband. Lauren was depressed for some time, and Liz would come over after work to comfort her and get her out of the home. And she even said that Nick, Lauren's husband, had asked her to do so too, since Lauren wasn't being receptive to him. Nick would pay for activities for them to do, such as movies or concerts, and I would pay for some as well. I didn't know Lauren especially well, but after inviting them over for dinner a few times, I felt like I began to know them more too. But when Lauren would tell my wife about how Nick would try to offer to do things with her too, Lauren would usually refuse them and his suggestions to splurge on herself to do her hair and make herself feel nice every once in a while. Liz tried to tell her that while she'll be there for her, that she should also confide in her husband and do things with him too. But she said that Lauren just felt guilty among other things, and there were a handful of fights that they had too. Fights where Lauren would tell Liz that she erupted at Nick for suggesting activities to her that she didn't want to do. Fights that Liz honestly felt that Lauren was in the wrong about because she was constantly resenting him. One of the fights happened when Nick brought her flowers and offered to take her out to dinner for her birthday, only for Lauren to snap at him because she wasn't in the mood. When Liz asked if he had already purchased the reservation before asking her, she said that he didn't and that he should have known she wasn't in the mood, and she refused to take the flowers too. The other fight they had was about a vacation week that Nick was planning to use, but when he asked if she wanted to go, she gave him an attitude about not wanting to. So when he said that he would use the PTO later in the year once she was feeling up to it, she got on him for not asking his friends instead. But when he said that he wanted to spend it with her, she just went off at him and told Liz about it too. Fast forward some time, and Lauren and Nick are no longer together. Lauren's condition has worsened, and it's taken a toll on my wife, who has continued to spend time with her after work. And I'm all for supporting her friend, but I believe that there's a point when you must also prioritize yourself. And in the beginning, my wife would be tired after going straight from work to Lauren's to comfort her both during the miscarriage and after the divorce. But now, as Lauren has continued to struggle more than a year after the miscarriage and refused Liz's suggestion to try therapy, once with her husband and even after the divorce, Lauren has begun to make concerning statements about feeling like she might end it and other stuff like that. And we were recently having lunch with another couple we know where Lauren texted her something similar and Liz couldn't enjoy herself. I totally understand that, and on that day, she expressed that she needed to leave to make sure that Lauren was alright, and this was towards the first few times that Lauren began saying that. However, while driving away, Liz called Lauren, who then said she didn't mean it, and Liz was somehow able to make her feel better on the phone to the point where it was unnecessary for her to come over anymore. So, while I was relieved, but not completely convinced that she was fine, I told Liz that maybe she should go over just to make sure, but Liz said it was fine and I trusted her with that since she knows her better. However, I also told her that while Lauren is her friend, she can't let her weigh her down when she's enjoying herself, like at lunch or other times we had plans and sacrificed them to be there for Lauren. And that if Lauren refuses to get help time and time again, there's only so much you can do, and you still have to live your life. And while she said that she agreed in the moment, it's gotten a lot worse the past few weeks at work, to the point where she lost her job, and I'll try to explain why. Ever since the day where Lauren said she might end it at lunch, my wife has stopped telling me about the specifics like she used to. And while I understand that she never had to include me in the complicated details between her and her friend, it started to affect her at work consistently, to the point where she's left work early to check on her over concerning messages that she no longer wants to show me, and I only found out about it because she was fired. She had a full-time job, but after she was fired after several warnings and nights where she'd come home and be distressed while not telling me why when I asked, she finally told me that she's been leaving early to visit Lauren and finally showed me a bunch of similar messages to end it from the other day, and she's really been affected by Lauren's condition a lot. However, I told her that that's not an excuse for the lack of communication, and I told her that over the past few weeks too, ever since she started to somewhat ghost me at home for apparently what I said after lunch, she showed me messages that pretty much proved she was going over there, as well as many calls that happened in her car during work hours too. However, we have bills to pay, and while I figured that maybe she was just down and stressed from work when she went quiet, She's begun blaming me for Lauren's condition of late and saying that I encouraged her to neglect her, when that's not the case. I told her I don't think Lauren is a healthy friend because she's always affecting her mood even when they're not together. Not to mention how she refused to seek therapy or better herself over a year since the miscarriage. However, she now sees me as the enemy because of those comments, and I don't know how to make her stop ignoring me of late again. I felt scared to tell her not to see Lauren anymore after we left the luncheon because of the possibility of cutting off Lauren's only support and having her maybe do something like she said, and having that on my conscience. But I'm starting to second guess myself after everything that's happened, and I just want to ask what I should do from here since she's not talking to me and thinks I'm not supportive of Lauren's condition, and I really feel like I'm losing her. From not eating dinner with me to not talking to me for long stretches, she sees me as the enemy, and I don't know what to do. Update. It's been a little bit since my first post, and part of me wanting to update is needing to do it for myself. My wife, Liz, has been best friends with Lauren since high school and long before I met her. However, Lauren's miscarriage led to my wife losing her job and her husband, Nick, divorcing her too. Lauren was depressed when the miscarriage happened, and a lot of people tried to support her afterward, including me. Nick purchased concert tickets for my wife and her to go to, and I had them over for dinner multiple times and also brought over dinner a few times too. We have a fund in our budget that goes to helping others aside from charity, and we both really wanted to help them. However, Lauren began to make her husband the enemy when talking to my wife about how he'd try to help her, and they were always together in the aftermath of the miscarriage. Lauren said that Nick wanted to take time off from work, using PTO, to be with her and work through his emotions, but she didn't want him to because she only wanted to be with Liz. He also suggested a vacation to get their mind off of things, but she wanted nothing to do with it and told him to go with friends. But when he asked one of his friends if he'd be interested, she yelled at him for not reading between the lines and doing exactly what she told him to do. There was also a time when Nick made breakfast and brought her flowers. But she threw them out and wanted to stay in bed, more than a month after the miscarriage at this point. He also suggested splurging on herself and offering to pay for her to do her hair for a night out. But she yelled at him again and kept resenting him, along with refusing his offer to do grief counseling together and not wanting any affection at all. Lauren only wanted to talk to my wife, and after each episode with her husband, she would text Liz, and Liz would sometimes come over and be the only relief that she wanted. She wanted nothing to do with Nick, but made plans with Liz right and left while continuing to neglect him in other ways too. So, eventually, Nick would divorce about 10 months after the miscarriage, and Lauren would enter a deep state of depression that required Liz to come over almost every day after work. Around this time, I told Liz that while I can't imagine what Lauren's going through, that I believe she was wrong to treat her husband in the ways that she vented to her about, but she snapped at me. I also told her that while it's good to help others, that it's important to prioritize your own health too, since she would come back late and call out of work numerous times because she barely got any sleep and was talked to for dozing off at work. I also told her that she's not a replacement for Lauren's husband, but she reiterated how they had been through everything since high school and that before there was us, there was them. And my wife never snapped at me until I questioned Lauren's character after being married for a few years. We've disagreed before, but when I criticized Lauren for the first time, she would defend her no matter what. However, I need to explain the exact event that predicated the conversation. We were at a lunch with some friends when Lauren texted Liz that she was considering ending it, and Liz grabbed my attention and insisted that we leave. And I'll admit that my mind was rushing in the moment. This was the first time that Lauren said something like that, and Liz kept saying that if we didn't leave, we might be too late. I made up an excuse and began to drive her there, but on the way, Lauren said that she changed her mind after talking to Liz on the drive there and that we no longer had to come over, and that is what prompted the conversation. Personally, I was afraid that if I didn't leave and she actually ended it, that the guilt would be with me, although I get that it shouldn't be, and my wife would forever resent me. My mind was also rushing and I couldn't think straight. I should have called the police, and it's my bad for not thinking of that, but I told her at home that we should consider calling them anyway if she's really feeling that way, but she wasn't having it and shut the conversation down. We've argued before, but the first time I ever criticized Lauren, she snaps like never before because I must have stepped on her holy grail. However, she did say that she'd take a break from Lauren, but that turned out to be a lie. While she wouldn't go over after work anymore, she would leave work early to visit Lauren numerous times, to the point where she came home and told me that she was fired one day completely out of the blue. She explained that she would leave to see Lauren on days when she felt like ending it again, and that she stopped telling me about Lauren because of our last conversation. She also said that Lauren's situation was making her distressed at work and needing to leave early, but that she got fired for doing so too many times after warnings. However, when I asked what that meant for our bills, she said that I make enough to cover, because that's partly my fault for telling her to not see Lauren after work. Update. A lot of people said that the proper word that describes her relation to Lauren is codependent, and I honestly agree. Some suggested that I leave for a few days to take a break and think about what I'm getting out of the relationship post Lauren's miscarriage that sparked the dramatic behavior change in my wife. However, the suggestion that I decided to follow was talking to her once more and telling her where I stand and seeing where we both stand on the matter. So, that conversation is why I'm updating. I echoed what someone said about how Liz could be enabling Lauren from wanting to seek therapy when she knows that she can call her at any time, and I also told her that lying by leaving early was wrong too. I also told her that we needed to discuss her next job, but she said that she'll get it when she wants to, because it's my fault that she had to sneak around in the first place, and she also disclosed something new. She said that she is an empath, and that she and Lauren are pretty much the same person. So when I criticized Lauren, I was criticizing her. She also said that I am someone who doesn't prioritize mental health, because I criticized Lauren, and that if she hadn't lied and sacrificed her job to be with her, Lauren might not be here, and it would be my fault. So, she said that paying for the bills was the least I can do, because I don't care about Lauren at all, completely forgetting how I cooked for them numerous times and bought them movie tickets among other things, and sometimes with my own money too. Before I could even say more once she got started, she said that she's been talking about me to Lauren a lot and that I'm no better than her ex-husband, and that she wants out and there's no changing her mind. Honestly, when we were going to talk, I wasn't expecting her to lay into me like that. I didn't expect it to be roses, but I really didn't expect her to get at me like that. I've been depressed myself lately and trying to push through, but we were in the process of getting a divorce because that's what she wanted. And I've also taken some time off for myself too. I've just started therapy, but the divorce process hurts, and still hurts, honestly. But that's pretty much it. I'm back working, but it still hurts. I'm playing a lot more games than I usually do at home, and a few of my friends have been really comforting. But it hurts, and I want to ask for any advice on moving on from such an ugly end to everything if anyone has any suggestions. But that's pretty much it. She was done before I could even get that far and even push for counseling together like someone else suggested too. Our first reaction comes from Scrotal Abrasion. My guy, she didn't deserve you. From your posts, it sounds like you did everything exactly right. You were concerned, empathetic, and accommodating. Unfortunately, like her friend, your wife needed someone to blame for her problems, and you were the most convenient target. You set boundaries that she couldn't follow, and ultimately she ruined your marriage. Now you know that you just weren't very high up on her priority list. It sounds like they both have serious mental health issues, and you can't help someone who won't help themselves. Take care of yourself, and don't let this destroy who you are. Next comment comes from False Guess. There are so many red flags with your wife that, although I understand how painful it may be, I think it will be so much better for you when you're free from her. From my perspective, your wife was cheating on you with Lauren. Maybe not in a physical sense, but she was definitely replacing you with Lauren. And Lauren seems to have some extremely severe mental health problems, if not a personality disorder. She definitely crossed a lot of boundaries with Lauren, and vice versa, and none of them are healthy. Your wife is not an empath. People just use that as an excuse when they lack the ability to control their emotions. Almost everyone, except psychopaths to some extent, has the ability to be empathetic, but healthy people establish boundaries. Your wife did not bother to establish any healthy boundaries with Lauren. It was stupid of her to leave her job at Lauren's beck and call, and Lauren's husband was right to divorce her. Having a miscarriage is traumatic, but it's not an excuse to be an abuser. So, she said that paying for the bills was the least I can do because I don't care about Lauren at all. This is a major red flag. Lauren is not you or your wife's responsibility, and the fact that she uses you as an ATM is deeply troubling and abusive. Your wife should not get any accolades for her moronic decision to leave her job to serve as a free therapist to Lauren because it may be actively harming Lauren's recovery since she is not a mental health expert. Either your wife is very, very dumb, or she's a manipulative narcissist who gets off on the feeling of being needed like that. I'm not trying to be harsh here, but your wife is an idiot, and my advice to you would be to take the time you need for yourself to practice self-care, lean on your friends when necessary, and to realize that you did nothing wrong. When it comes time to divorce your wife, be merciless in the proceedings. If they want to have such an unhealthy, toxic, codependent relationship with each other, let them, and block the both of them. If your wife comes to her senses and realizes she threw away an entire marriage for a toxic friendship, do not speak to her again. This is not behavior that she can make up for, and if you end up taking her back, she will only ever make you miserable. The only amount of contact that is healthy with their dynamic is absolutely zero. Moving on to the next story. Should I tell my brother's new girlfriend he was arrested for assault, strangulation, and kidnapping his wife? She has a young son, and I'm worried about their safety. There is so much to unpack with my history and with my brother. I moved out at 16 because I felt uncomfortable around him. He kept opening the bathroom door while I showered and my bedroom door after my showers. He would comment on my body. Also, he squeezed by me in the kitchen and rubbed his junk against my butt. He was 19 using heavy drugs like ecstasy. I was out couch surfing as a teen because I was scared of him. Needless to say, we haven't been in much contact since, and I am estranged from all my family except one sister, and even that is low contact. In 2018, he met a woman in her 50s, and they got married within 6 months. He was 27 or 28. He struggles a lot with alcoholism in recent years, and so has his wife. Their relationship soon became toxic, and he accused her of cheating. It became abusive, and then he had a mental breakdown. He thought people from his work were spying on him, so he left the state for a few months, then came back and went back to her. Things got worse because of her previous cheating. I don't know if it actually happened because he seemed to be having delusions at that time. He was eventually arrested for assault by strangulation, assault on a female, and kidnapping. Him and his wife broke up over the summer, and for the last 3 months or so, he's dating another older woman. They immediately became serious, and she's always posting about him on Facebook and has him around her young son. I know my brother hasn't gone through any therapy since what happened with his wife. I am so scared for this woman and her son's safety, to be honest. I am thinking of anonymously sending her a link to an article that has his mugshot and charges. I feel like she deserves to know the danger she is in. He is half her age and has swept her off her feet immediately, just like his wife. And I'm worried it's only a matter of time before the son sees his mom being abused. Update. So the general consensus was I should definitely inform her. I looked at her Facebook profile and realized her and her husband just split on September 14th. She made a post about it being amicable, but she was posting about loving my brother less than a month later. I don't know if there was an affair, but it seems likely. I thought about the comments left by several people who tried to warn others about their previous abusers and were brushed off because they were thought of as a jealous ex. I've encountered that situation myself. So instead of messaging her directly, I messaged her ex or father of her son. I figured the son's father, who looked like a great man, his whole profile was pics of their son and family, has the right to know the danger his son is in, and it doesn't run the risk of her just sweeping it under the rug and not telling anyone. My thinking is he will definitely bring it up in custody court and not let his son around my brother. So hopefully that happens, as it makes the relationship difficult, so she breaks up with him. Here's what I sent. Jane's new boyfriend, Hank Davis, was arrested for assault on female, strangulation, and kidnapping his wife. If you look up his background, you will see he was arrested many times since 2019-2021 for abusing his wife. Here is a link to one of the articles. Insert link. Please make sure she and your son stay safe. I did block him after sending the message from a burner account I plan on deleting, so there will be no message back. I feel relieved and like I did the right thing. Our first reaction from Secure Subject 3369. If you messaged him via Facebook on a burner account without him accepting you as a friend, please be aware that he might not have seen the message. Messages that are sent from someone who you are not friends with will be directed to his request folder, and depending on his filtering settings, he might never see your message. Also, if you immediately block him after sending the message without him reading or saving bookmarking the links, I think the message might automatically be deleted after blocking him. I've not used Facebook Messenger in years. This could be wrong, but I thought it was important enough to mention. Tiggly Lizzie has the next comment. I was also thinking this, OP. I think you need to unblock him from the burner account to see if he actually got the message. Moving on to our final comment from ImpossibleTown984. I don't understand why you couldn't tell her through a burner account. Doesn't she deserve to know?